In one corner of the world, a billionaire tycoon turned president watches his empire tremble. In another, a 35-year-old African soldier rises from the dust, not with money, but with the fire of revolution. Donald Trump lives surrounded by golden towers as courtrooms close in. Ibrahim Traoré walks among his people wrapped in camouflage, silent but unshaken. Two men born on different continents, speaking to different worlds, yet their names echo across the same headlines. One symbolizes power born from wealth, the other power born from struggle. This is not just a clash of personalities. It is a collision of visions, a battle between the past and the future, between imperial nostalgia and a Pan-African awakening. This is the story of Traoré versus Trump, the battle for Africa's future. He was not born into fame or fortune. No cameras followed his childhood. No global headlines marked his rise. Ibrahim Traoré was a son of Burkina Faso, a soldier forged in the heat of rebellion. When the streets filled with protest and the people cried out for justice, he did not watch from the sidelines. He stood up. In 2022, at just 34 years old, he led a coup that shocked the world. But this was no power grab. This was a response to a silent war. Foreign powers drained African soil while terrorists roamed free. The people had lost hope. Traoré became their answer. Young, bold, fearless, he wore no gold, only his uniform and the trust of the streets. As Western media called him a threat, Africa began calling him a symbol, a new Sankara, a new flame. Thousands of miles away, Donald Trump stood at the heart of a different empire. Towering buildings bore his name, crowds cheered his rise, and the media followed his every word. He promised to make America great again, but his vision was steeped in nostalgia and the old world order, where the West ruled and the rest obeyed. As president, he called African nations names unfit for dignity. He cut aid, stirred division, and strengthened walls. But Trump was more than a man. He became a symbol of Western dominance, of a system that saw Africa as a resource, not a partner. Even as he faced trial after trial, his influence lingered, not just in America, but in the corridors of power that shaped Africa's fate. He represented the echo of colonial legacy, dressed in modern politics. Asterisk. On one side, Ibrahim Traoré, a young African soldier, marching with barefoot children and speaking of unity and freedom. On the other, Donald Trump, a billionaire businessman rallying under gold-lit stages, calling for America first. Both men rose from chaos, both rejected the status quo, but their visions could not be more different. Traoré spoke of breaking chains, of reclaiming Africa for Africans, of silencing the guns and waking up the youth. Trump spoke of building walls, tightening borders, putting his country above all else. While Traoré opened the door to Pan-Africanism, Trump slammed shut the idea of global equality. In their rise, the world saw two futures, one built on self-interest, the other on collective liberation. Asterisk. The world watched as both men dominated headlines, but for very different reasons. In America, Donald Trump faced indictments, protests, and televised courtroom battles. He became both a martyr and a menace depending on who you asked. Meanwhile, in Africa, Ibrahim Traoré stood on dusty stages, raising his fist to cheering crowds, declaring Africa's right to its own destiny. One trended for scandal, the other for sovereignty. In the streets of Ouagadougou, chants of revolution filled the air, while on American news channels, Trump's legal drama played like a reality show. Two leaders commanding attention, one for liberation, the other for litigation. The contrast was glaring, the symbolism profound. Across the continent, something deeper was stirring. From Mali to Niger to Burkina Faso, a new generation rose on not weapons but purpose. They looked not to Washington or Paris, but to each other. Ibrahim Traoré became their voice, their symbol of resistance. He spoke of African unity, of ending foreign control, of rewriting the rules within European boardrooms. Meanwhile, Trump's voice echoed in a different way, reminding the world how deeply the West feared losing control. But Africa was no longer waiting for permission. It was standing up, speaking out, choosing leaders who looked like them, lived their struggles. The old empire was cracking, and in its place a new dawn was breaking. Asterisk. In Burkina Faso, schools turned into forms revolution, into homework. Young people studied not just math, but the meaning of sovereignty. They quoted Thomas Sankara, shared clips of Traoré's speeches, and wore Pan-African colors with pride. The youth were no longer just watching history, they were making it. In contrast, Trump's America saw young people divided, confused by politics, flooded with media, but starved of vision. While one youth marched towards self-determination, the other scrolled through chaos. This was more than a difference in geography. It was a clash of dreams, one rooted in rebirth, the other trapped in nostalgia. The future was being written in Africa, not in marble halls, but in dusty streets, by kids who refused to bow. Asterisk. Global headlines painted two very different pictures. Western outlets called Traoré a military dictator, a threat to democracy. Meanwhile, African newsrooms and grassroots platforms hailed him as a hero, a symbol of defiance against neocolonialism. On the other hand, Trump was either glorified or vilified depending on the channel. But something was clear. The media wasn't neutral. It shaped reality, crafted heroes and villains to fit its narrative. Traoré knew this. That's why he leaned on African voices, on local journalists, on truth-tellers from within. In the digital battlefield, hashtags became weapons. Truth became a matter of perspective. But in Africa, the people were learning to write their own story, and this time, they refused to let anyone else hold the pen. While Trump fought to preserve his legacy through courtrooms and campaigns, Traoré was busy building his through people and purpose. In Burkina Faso, every school rebuilt, every foreign soldier removed, every village electrified was a line in his living legacy. His leadership wasn't just remembered, it was felt. It echoed in the chants of youth, in murals on city walls, and in the silent pride of elders who finally saw a leader stand tall without bowing to Western powers. Meanwhile, Trump's name echoed through media cycles, and lawsuits loud, controversial, but uncertain. The contrast was undeniable. One legacy was fighting to stay relevant. The other was already shaping the future. In Africa, the legacy wasn't written in books, it was marching in the streets. Trump and Traoré, two men born on different continents, raised in different worlds, but both symbols of rebellion in their own ways. One fought to reclaim power in a system he once dominated. The other fought to dismantle a system that had dominated his people for centuries. Trump's story was about restoring greatness. Traoré's was about redefining it. As the world watches these two figures shape their paths, a bigger question emerges. What future do we want? One clinging to old empires and power games, or one built by young leaders, unafraid to break chains and dream freely? In Africa, a new dawn is rising, and this time, the story won't be written in Washington. It'll be written in Ouagadougou, by those who dared to imagine a future their ancestors were never allowed to see.